We are live.
Awesome.
Um, I'm also gonna try. I'm gonna record. Okay. And Mummy, you call to check Facebook?
Oh, no, because I don't have my phone.
Oh, you don't have your phone. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check. I'll
Sorry.
check Facebook.
I'm a bit useless today.
No, that's okay. Um, yep, we're all good.
Okay, great.
Okay, so welcome everybody to this week's episode on She's of Love.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very excited about this episode because I'm sure many of you aren't aware because this was quite a while ago before our page grew to the size that it is now. But we did an Ancient Mysteries um, special like episode series. Um, and yeah, we just covered, I would do a bunch of research and then bring that research here and talk with you, Mum, about it. And we would like
Mm.
discuss about these really cool ancient mysteries, if we think they're real, what's the truth behind them. And it's something I'm very passionate about. So, yeah, our
Yeah,
first
and
ever episode. Oh, yeah.
can I just say, Juliet, sorry
Mm,
to interrupt you, but I just want to say that my experience being your mum has been that you bring like you doing this series with the ancient mysteries and bringing this information to me
mm.
has been like since you were a small child. Like
Yeah,
you would
yeah.
bring me topics, you would come to me and you would say, Mum, what do you think about ABC? And I would go, what? What? Like, what do you mean? What do I think about it? And they were always huge world topics,
Mm,
like like Santa Claus, for
yeah.
example, right? So you would come to me and you would say, there's this group of people that are putting out content on social media, on YouTube, on places like that. And you were pretty young, like you were like 10, 12.
Mm,
And you would say to me, what do you think about it? Because these people are saying ABC. And I would go, oh, really? I didn't know. Because, of course, I wasn't watching these videos. I was just living my life, going to work, raising my children. I wasn't
mm,
connected in to those things. And I feel like Ancient Mysteries is a little bit like that
mm,
because you've brought me some topics over the last 3 years. And since then, since you bringing it to me, I've since found out that some of it is pretty accurate.
mm. Well, yeah, well, I think I've always been interested in like very obscure topics
Mm,
that you wouldn't think have a big effect on life, but they do.
they do.
And ancient mysteries for me, well, number one, it's a lot of fun because I love a good conspiracy and I love a good mystery and I love kind of the magical element to it
Hmm.
and or the
And the
supernatural
connection
element
to
to it.
real life.
Yeah, but
But
it's still
that's
real.
that's the yeah, but see, that's the
Mm,
beauty of it. That's
mm.
the beauty of it for me because I kind of it at first when you say the thing like it was nine
It's
eleven or
it's
the
like a
moon
big bomb,
landing or
and then I'm like, but hold on, don't say
mm,
anything yet. Let me give you the backstory,
yes, that's
and then you can
exactly
tell me.
yeah.
Yeah. And so today we're covering Atlantis, which
Hmm.
is shrouded in just like, oh God, like so much misinformation, um, like craziness, like flying cars and that type of stuff. And that's what I thought of Atlantis when I first like heard about this, well, this theory that I'm going to get into. I thought it was like crazy technologies and like this ancient civilization that had basically was like a modern day society, but just like back then, and it's disappeared and whatnot. but it's so much deeper than that. It's not, I mean, it kind of is that, yes, but it's not. Take away the flying cars and the comic book superhero type stuff, and
Mm.
that's what this video is sharing the real information, at least that I've found, and kind of investigating where history gets covered up a little bit, or
Mm.
um, I do believe that a lot of our history in humanity is covered up or denied, and
Mm.
that's for a purpose to make
Yeah.
us feel disconnected.
Yeah,
So
100%.
yeah, that's what
100%.
this
And
series
that's,
is.
yeah, and that's what I found to be the case with the topics that you would bring me as a child.
Mm,
And um, I didn't make that connection straight away with this series, because I don't know, maybe because we were new and it was a bit stressful and all of that. But now we're
yeah.
kind of like in the flow of things, and you and I kind of like got our groove.
Mm,
Um, I realized this is just the same thing on
yeah.
steroids now
Yeah.
that you're
Yeah.
older.
Yeah. And also to an audience
Because,
of like thousands of people. So
yeah.
yeah.
And also, too, that um, now that you've brought, like when you bring me these things, the ancient mysteries, or any of the things that we used to talk about when you were a kid, later on, it comes out that there's actually, like, it's been 10 years since you opened my eyes to the moon landing, right?
Mm,
There's a Hollywood movie now.
yeah.
They've made this Hollywood movie now that explains and says that the moon landing was fake.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
called Fly Me to the Moon. If anybody's interested in watching it.
Yeah. And it's a lot more accepted. Like a lot more people kind of are like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, honestly, it probably is fake. Whereas back
Yeah.
then it was like, no, absolutely not. Well,
Yeah.
should we get into this,
Yeah. Yeah. Let's start.
get
Yeah.
started? Okay, so this video about Atlantis is going to be a bit different to the first one we did years back. Um, and if anyone wants to watch the first one, you can if you want to, but it's not
I'll
great.
link it.
Yeah,
I'll link. No, but
it's not
Juliet,
my favorite.
I know it. I know how you feel about it, but it's wonderful because it's innocent and it's how we started, and
Yeah,
it's,
it was my
like that's
first
our,
one.
yeah, it's our roots.
Yeah.
So I'll link it below this after we've finished. Yeah.
And I've got a notebook here, so I will be looking down a little bit for those wondering. But I felt like a really good place to start with this giant topic of Atlantis is, where did this myth come from? Because it's kind of grown into this thing over, because it is hundreds, I think, well, thousands of years old, this story. Yeah, it is. It's thousands of years old. And over time, it's just kind of blown up and out of proportion, and it has become this very fictionalized thing, but it comes from very real roots. And
Mm-hmm.
where we actually get this story from, the original, I guess, source is from Plato, and he wrote a play back in ancient Greece, and he started off his play by saying that this is a true story, and he laid out all the facts of Atlantis. It wasn't like his other plays, where um, his other plays were very fictional, like they were purposefully portrayed as fictional. But his Atlantean story literally opened by him saying, "This is real. This is true." Um, and then begs the question, well, where did Plato get the story from?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and he got it from his ancestor, not directly, but it's like passed down into through his family, and it comes from, I think it's like his great 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 grandfather or uncle or someone like that. who existed 300 years before him, and his uncle or like whatever, his ancestor was named Solon. And back, I think it was in 600 BC, he went to ancient Egypt and met up with these like ancient Egyptian like priests. And that's where they got the story. Well, that's where Solon got the story, and he passed that down through his family, got to Plato. Plato obviously had the story from his family and then spread it in this play. Um, and then, I mean, for the story to be so I guess impactful that here thousands of years later we are still talking about it and it is still a major um legend really says something, because stories hold so much for people. So it's such, oh my God, it's just such a futuristic message in a sense. Like it was like almost it's meant for our time and reflecting on it, because it really like makes us reflect on ourselves, because it's about this civilization that got destroyed by a catastrophic flood. And um yeah, it had there's lots of details in Plato's story. I won't go into it all of them. I will go into some of them.
Mm.
um but so far, do you have any questions, Mum?
No, it's
Okay.
yeah, it's very,
So
very clear so far.
yeah, basically, um he the priest said to Solon that Atlantis was this civilization that existed in I think 9,000 years ago. At the time he said 9,000 years ago, which is 11,600 years ago today. That's how long ago it existed. Um, and there's many other details, but so just keep in mind the 11,600 year ago date, because that's a prolific number that I'll get back to. But there was many like details that was shared about these people had very advanced knowledge about like the stars. And so there was never any talk of like cars, flying cars, or also this whole like underwater thing is like complete and utter, like it never existed underwater. It existed on land. And um I guess the kind of myth is that it's sunk, but we'll it it probably wasn't sunk. It like I don't think we're going to find a city underwater. It's going to be it's probably destroyed, and it got destroyed in a cataclysm. um But another thing was that Atlantis, according to Plato, isn't just one city. It is 10 cities. It's like a whole, like, basically a whole, like, continent, almost like a whole empire. And it had 10 kingdoms with 10 different kings. But there was the main city, and that was kind of what Plato was talking about mainly. Um, and there was like one main city with like the main king kind of thing. And the king's name was like the first king of Atlantis was named Atlas. And yeah, there's like we'll kind of go
That's
into further
appropriate.
detail, but that's kind of just a general setup.
Hmm.
Um, but then going
So
back
is
to,
that why an atlas is called Atlas because of him?
I don't know. I think there's probably some etymology there. Like it is a Greek word, I believe. I think it is Greek. So I don't know if, again, this might be Plato's, because he was Greek. It might be him translating words that he got from, like maybe it wasn't actually Atlas,
Hmm.
but the name of the king was like the way it would be translated would be Atlas in Greek kind of thing. Like I'm not sure, but I think just something that's super interesting is the fact that this story actually came from ancient Egypt, not from Plato, which is well, supposedly, um, which I think is really interesting, and we'll go into that more as well. But with the 11,600 years thing, there was this time period called the Younger Dryas, and it's basically this period between 12,800 years ago and 11,600 years ago, where the planet's temperature dropped and went into an ice age. And we know that, well, I guess people still want to debate it, but it's very highly evident that it was most likely a comet impact that started this period. Um, and we also know at the end, so when it was 11,600 years ago, at the end of the Younger Dryas, we don't have a perfect, straightforward reason why it ended. But what we do know is that there was a huge rise in sea level. And this is like, take away Atlantis, take away all of that stuff. This is like scientific, factual evidence. We know 100% that there was a giant surge in sea level. And this is what many historians believe was the original like Great Flood, like because there's giant stories of great floods, like in every civilization. Like in China they have one, in India they have one, in Egypt they have one. We have Noah's Ark, and like basically anywhere you go there's a giant flood myth. And um a lot of people believe that that was linked to the end of the Younger Dryas, when there was a huge rise in sea level. It really changed a lot on planet Earth, and like changed the landscape a lot. I think even Indonesia, like what's Indonesia now with a bunch of little islands, was like kind of a giant landmass. But because of the rise, it's now just a bunch of islands and things like that. So this end of the Younger Dryas period would have led to the destruction of Atlantis. And that's when the priest said it was destroyed. Like he said it was destroyed 9,000 years ago, which now moving forward in time is 11,600 years ago, which is the exact same time as when a giant flood happened across the whole globe. So that in itself is a very interesting um, fact that you can't just kind of overlook. Like the coincidence of that is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of a bit wild. Like just to pinpoint that date and it actually be linked to something massive like those giant catastrophic floods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just odd. It's just odd. And yeah, there's even a theory that I personally am interested in, which is the fact that ancient Egypt um comes from Atlantis, like the ancestors, because that's in their own, like Kemet is ancient Egypt. It's like what ancient Egypt is called before it was Egypt. It was called Kemet.
Yeah,
And
Egypt is a Greek name, I think.
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're all quite interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Kemet, their origin stories are a lot, there's a lot of it's basically a giant flood that happened. Um, and there's many like different origin stories and stuff. But there's one like found in a temple, and I tried to find the temple's name and I couldn't for the life of me find the temple name where these hieroglyphs are. But if I do, I'll link it below, like I'll put it down below or something. But in one of the temples there, the hieroglyphs like talk about this whole story of um their ancestors having to leave their homeland and like coming to Egypt on boats and like
Mm-hmm.
setting up um a new civilization, and um kind of sharing their like ancient knowledge and their profound wisdom, and kind of yeah building a new civilization with their knowledge, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of found all over the globe, um, and is supported in many different ways, like the Egyptian pyramids, and um, they have many stone carvings that are literally insane, that there are museums with signs saying these were made with human hands, because unless these humans were like magical wizards, or they had some type of machinery, and I'm not talking plug it into an electrical socket and drill, like we don't know what these machines look like, but the amount of symmetry and precision, it is mathematically like perfect, and it's not possible for human hands to create that with copper chisels, like they say. So that's like all these kind
Are you
of
talking
pots
about the
that they make.
pyramids now?
And pyramids, yeah, well, the pyramids is different, but the sarcophagus, like the tombs that are in the pyramids, are like this as well. So like the tombs are like angularly. These guys went in and had like a laser, like it was like a laser tool to measure the accuracy of the angles and the straight lines of these tombs that were carved out of granite. I think they were granite. It was some kind of stone, and it was like point naught like 9% off or something, or like 1% off, or it was like seven zeros and then a number, and that's how much off of the angle it was. And I don't know, it's just like so baffling to me that these scientists and archaeologists who are so about going off the evidence and like factual information, and like relying on the facts, and like so constructive, that they see that and they're like, oh yeah, well, they had copper chisels. It's like, hello, like no, that's not possible. um so yeah, and then also the giant scale of the pyramids too. All of these are back in early dynastic Egypt, and as time goes on in Egypt, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. The statues get smaller, the pyramids get smaller and more wonky. No more of these like pottery, like I say pottery, it's not pottery, it's like stone carvings, because they're like pots, but they're carved out of stone and they're like insanely accurate. But so I want to say pottery, but it's not, it's like carving. That no, none of those were found later on in um ancient Egypt. It all went away. It was like as if they lost this information. It's like they lost their touch. And that's completely the opposite of what is to be expected. When civilization gets older and grows on with time, it gets better and better at what it does, not worse and worse. So logically, there has to be a reason why this is. And um, I think it's safe to say that they never lost their dedication to the gods. Like that was always a super strong thing. Um, and even if you were to use it as an argument, like these pots weren't an ode to a god. They were just like their usual pots and like bowls and stuff. So why all of a sudden has that been lost completely when it's just a normal household essential? It's not like a worship thing. So yeah, I don't it's just doesn't make sense. That's one example in ancient Egypt. Um Another example is um Göbekli Tepe, and we had
Mm.
an incredible opportunity to actually go. So me and mum both gone to Göbekli Tepe, and um, their dates line up exactly with the end of the Younger Dryas. So when that, well, I don't even know how to get, because Göbekli Tepe is its own episode. but I guess as a brief overview, it's this megalithic site that's dated to around 12,000, technically 11,600 years ago. And it's the biggest megalithic site, I think, ever. Maybe I'm lying with that. I don't know, but it's a
Oh, it is.
giant. Yeah, it
It
is.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've only dug up 5 to 10% of it. And their whole excuse with that is like lack of funding. And we have gone there. It was so crowded with people. I refuse to believe, and you have to pay entry, and it's not cheap. I refuse to believe that they don't have funding because it there was what, like bordering on thousands of people. Like there was
Not
hundreds.
there were thousands.
Yeah, okay. I'm not good at like gauging like amounts of things, but yeah, it was packed. And they're like, oh yeah, we can't keep digging because we don't have enough funding. It's like this is the oldest megalithic site on the planet ever to be discovered so far, and you're telling me that you don't have the funding to continue exploring and digging and finding information out? Like, what do you mean? Like that makes no sense unless you're deliberately trying not to look into this. So it's massive, and the what we have uncovered already is signs of knowledge of the stars, which is like
Mm.
way before like archaeologists are like, no, it's not. No, it's just like random carvings of like animals and stuff. Like definitely not anything to do with the stars because it's just so beyond the knowledge that they were supposed to have at this time, 12,000 years ago. And it was also a site of worship. It wasn't like they built this megalithic structure as a city or to house. It was simply to worship because there was no um like, I guess, signs of living there. There was no waste or like there was no ceramics. It was just the pillars. And the thing about this site is, okay, it's dated to 11,600 years ago, the end of the Younger Dryas, when there was giant catastrophic shit happening across the whole planet.
Mm.
And it's only dated to that date because that was when it was buried, because it was deliberately buried. And so they aged the soil on top because you can't date the pillars, like the pillars of stone. You can't, like, unless you want to date when the stone was formed, which is like probably billions of years ago,
Mm.
um, you can't date the stone. You can only date the material on the stone. So it was deliberately buried at the end of the last, like the Younger Dryas. And so we
Mm.
don't actually know the exact date because it could have existed, who knows, hundreds, thousands of years before it was buried. Um, and we don't know much about it because they're not digging it up. But what we have found is incredible, incredible stuff, and it's completely rewritten the history, like human history. So that's
Mm-hmm.
another site that links to the Younger Dryas and potentially Atlantis and this kind of out of nowhere pocket of a civilization that has immaculate knowledge they shouldn't have. Where did they get this knowledge from? Like, and why does nowhere else have it? And so, um, what people like me think is that maybe these people from another civilization, potentially something like Atlantis, um, moved, like lost their home and migrated to Göbekli Tepe and shared their knowledge with the people there. And
Yeah, because Göbekli Tepe, the thing that going there was so amazing for me because I,
mm,
not unlike you, don't have this incredible interest in the past and in archaeology and things like that, whereas you do. I went there because you wanted to go there.
mm,
I went with you. And I'm so glad that I did
yeah,
because the thing that struck me the heaviest and the biggest out of going there was that Go Göbekli Tepe they could see from the ruins that it was a place that many travelers came to as well. It was a place of worship
mm,
predominantly. That was the reason why they created it, the people at the time. But because all of these people came from all around the country and around
mm,
the region and probably further afield, the reason they came there was to worship. It was a worshipping site.
yeah,
And so then what happened was, because all of these people were gathering in this spot to worship together, they would trade.
mm,
It was an opportunity then for them to trade goods with each
yeah. It
other.
was
Like,
like a city.
yeah, I have this thing, I have this thing that I don't need anymore. You have a thing that I need. Can we swap?
Mm,
Right? So that's how the worshipping, bringing the people there in the first place, that was
mm,
the intention of it,
yeah,
created this whole other intention.
yeah,
And so it was like, for me, because um you know, spirituality and religion and faith and all of that spiritual stuff is interesting to me.
mm,
So
yeah.
the physical world was interesting to you, whereas the faithful spiritual world was interesting to me. So knowing that that's
Well,
what
it's
brought people together
yeah, it's so
in the first place
profound
was really
because
interesting.
yeah, and I think my biggest issue with, I guess, the academic theory with all this bothers me a lot because it makes these people seem unintelligent and
Mm,
dumb. And it's like, oh, they were hunter gatherers. Like they didn't like
no,
before Göbekli Tepe was discovered, it was like this Neanderthal label, like, oh, they're dumb and it's just
no,
they're
they
hunting
weren't.
food and that kind of thing. But these people banded together to create something beyond beyond
Mm,
imagination. And they also lived in a world where they didn't have cell phones or laptops or internet. Their whole life, they didn't have supermarkets. They had to live by hunting and gathering. Like, obviously, that's why they're called hunter gatherers. They had other shit to do to survive. And yet they
yeah,
still made the effort and the time to build this huge, huge site
yeah.
to, dedicate like their faith to whatever it was that it like I don't know
It was so
why, but
important to them. It was
yeah,
so
it was so
important to them.
important. Um, and
And it grew
there's deep
society.
intelligence.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
grew society because
Mm,
it was a place of worship and people would come there. It made sense to then barter with each other and
mm,
trade with each other and that sort of thing, because that was when they were together. And
yeah.
that connection for me was like, wow, that's huge. Like, that, people don't realize that faith came before economy.
Yeah.
The economy happened because of the faith. And you saying that they weren't hunter gatherers and they were a lot more intelligent than that is evident when you go to Göbekli Tepe. It's
Well, they
so
were
evident.
well, I want to clarify they were hunter gatherers. I believe that, but
Mm,
they were hunter gatherers and they were doing this.
yeah, they weren't
So they were
dumb.
both. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
because when you go to Göbekli Tepe, you see the tools that they had, you see the
Mm,
jewelry they made, you
yeah.
see the things that they dug up at that site,
Mm,
and you see them with your own eyes, the physical objects, and you
yeah.
know instinctively, you know that those people were highly intelligent people.
They
They were
probably knew
not
more than
just
us.
these Neanderthal. Yeah, very similar to us.
Yeah.
Very similar. Like their jewelry, they've got these little stone
Also,
beads
I
and
would wear that unironically. Like the
yeah,
jewelry that these people would make, like if
yeah,
I saw that in a shop, I would legitimately buy it. So they had fashion sense too. That's
yeah.
um but So Göbekli Tepe is a big one.
Yeah.
Some other places that I feel are worth mentioning that may be connected to this ancient civilization. It may be Atlantis, it might be something else, I don't know, but um is the Amazon. There's like a bunch of cities now that are being discovered with this technology called LiDAR. And basically, it's like this laser that doesn't harm, well, I hope it doesn't harm. They say it doesn't harm the environment. And it scans the floor of the Amazon, like beneath the tree line. And it gives us outlines to the land. And so now that we have this technology, they're flying over the Amazon and finding these giant, like, cities that have been
Mm.
completely overgrown by vegetation. And there's yeah, that's also a whole other episode, but that's something to mention. And there's also in India, there's lots of places, like there's the Barabar caves, and this kind of also connects to the ancient Egyptian like stonework and how accurate it was. So that was the same in these caves in India called the Barabar caves, and they're these like insanely accurate carved stone, like they're carved out of like a stone face, like a cliff face or whatever, and they are like insanely accurate. Again, researchers put in these like um laser stuff, and it's like precise to an absurd level. um just like the coffins in the pyramids of Giza, just like the stone carvings and everything that you find in ancient Egypt, it's the same in these caves in India. And we just don't know how they did that. Well, they say it's metal tools, but like, screw you. I mean, I don't believe you. Like, no. So yeah, and it it's just like weird that there's these levels that connect between these cultures across the world in these ancient times. There's
Mm.
um there's even like connections with ancient Egypt and Australian Aboriginals, like at least like Australian Aboriginals that I've spoken to have mentioned connections in their like Dreamtime stories and stuff. And there's also
Wow.
hieroglyphs that have been found in Australia. So again, I don't know if that's just my personal experience talking with, the people I've talked to, but there are also hieroglyphs like found on these random stones in close to Sydney in Gosford. And yeah, again, there's also some we've spoken about that one. So if you're interested in that, you can watch that episode. um so there's some like connecting ancient cultures that may
And I
hold
just want to
these some of
say,
these elements.
sorry,
Hmm.
Juliet, I just want to say on that point, anybody who wants to watch our previous episodes can go to YouTube. We've got a channel and they can watch
Mm.
all the episodes there. Everything
Yeah,
is
I
there.
have a playlist called Ancient Mysteries.
Yeah.
So, yes. So then kind of to round out this episode, now that I've kind of given a bit of a overview, then we talk about, well, where was Atlantis? If,
Mm.
you know, there was
If
this
it did
giant
exist.
yeah, where was this giant civilization? And like it was so big and so awesome, then where is it? And it could just be in the middle of the ocean. It could just be in the middle of the ocean, to be honest, and just destroyed to oblivion. But there is also one place that I wanted to mention, and it's called the Richot structure. And it is a natural forming place in it's actually called the Eye of the Sahara, and it is in Africa, in Mauritania, and it has concentric circles like it says in the story of Atlantis that Plato told. Like it was said that Atlantis had these concentric circles of like land, sea, kind of like a target, like an archer's target or something. Um, and this has that naturally forming concentric circles, and it has salt in the sand. That's obviously there's no water there anymore, but there is salt in the sand that you can even see from satellite Google images. You can see all this white stuff in the sand, and it's actually salt. What? Why is there these giant deposits of salt unless it was used to be run with seawater? And then that gets to my next point about this potential location is yes, it is in the middle of the Sahara Desert, but it was in the middle of the Sahara Desert 12,000 years ago, and the Sahara Desert was a very different place then, and it was a lot more warmer and actually tropical and green, believe it or not. So it was a very, it was very likely that it was like inhabited by people back then, and it was actually a good place to live for agriculturally, like for food and hunting and stuff. Um, Plato also mentioned there was elephants here in Atlantis, so there would be elephants in Atlantis, and there are mountains to the north, as mentioned also in the story, and the mountain range north of the Eye of the Sahara are called the Atlas Mountains, just like Atlas, the first king. So very potential, like just very interesting, but it's kind of in a rough spot geographically. Mauritania is not the greatest place to go on holiday and check this place out. Like, there's landmines around and people die. Like this guy who wanted to see this place for himself and see if it like was a potential location. He like almost died. He saw a bunch of dead people and like it was really horrible. So it's not like you can just go in and just check it out. Like it's a very intense location. Um, so yes, there's also uncovered like now made public CIA documents from this project called Project Magnet, where the CIA, it was like a legit operation where the CIA went and investigated places of high electromagnetic fields. And they went to the research structure and like this place because it has heightened electromagnetic um frequency. It's like weird, and they went there to investigate it. I don't know what they found from that, but they did go there for this CIA project. Um, it's also so big you can see it from space, so it would have been
Mm.
massive. Um, so that's a potential location that kind of I don't know if it was, but there's some weird. There was something weird going on, no matter if it was Atlantis or not. And yeah, so that's one potential place. And I think to end this video, I kind of want to talk about a deeper sense of who were the people that lived here in Atlantis, because I think it's kind of the biggest point I want to set across is that it's not that crazy to imagine that there was these ancient people with higher knowings of life. They had no internet, they had nothing to do. So, of course, they're just going to meditate or like sit with life and the universe and the stars. Like, what else are you going to do when you don't have, you don't have, you know, a society like ours? Like, their society was very different. You didn't need to go to a 9 to 5.
Mm.
Yeah, the stars were their entertainment. The stars and the night sky was their TV. That was what they immersed themselves in a lot. And I think they probably found out some really cool stuff about their inner world and how they can affect the outer world with that, and like deep spiritual knowledge. And I my theory, at least at this point, in my deep dive of this rabbit hole, is that there was a giant flood of this ancient civilization. We can call it Atlantis, we can call it whatever. There was a giant flood. It almost wiped them out, almost wiped them out, almost killed them. And so they fled to other places. And again, this is a 10 kingdom level society. So they probably spread out to a bunch of different um, environments and different societies. Well, I
Mm,
guess they're not really societies at that point, civilizations around the world. And they were like, hey, man, our home got destroyed. Can we please live with you? And I'll show you I'll show you how to build big things, and like I'll teach you about the stars and that kind of thing. And they were like, yeah, absolutely, teach us, please. And
mm,
that's just kind of how it went. I don't think it's has to be that crazy of, you know, this like crazy conspiracy of um aliens and this and that, and like, and I just think it's a lot more simple than that. And but still just as cool and still just
yeah.
as awesome. So that's my theory.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after seeing Gobekli Tepe for myself in real life
Mm,
and taking an interest in it,
yeah.
because I've really believed that after going there, because I wasn't interested in going, I wouldn't have gone there if it wasn't for you, Juliet.
Hmm.
But going there myself and seeing it in person, it's blown my mind wide open
Yeah.
to the awesomeness of humanity.
Yeah.
And
They're pretty
also,
cool.
yeah, and also has created some question marks.
Mm,
Like, I'm talking real question marks about the way we write history
mm,
and how
yeah.
we believe, like, we cannot, like, it's so difficult for historians and archaeologists and people like that to make a discovery and then say, oh yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah.
This discovery means that I was wrong. You know, that should be a lot easier than it is,
Yeah.
because really at the end of the day, to say that you're wrong, or having difficulty to say that you're wrong, is just ego. That's all
Yeah.
it is. It doesn't, and the truth doesn't care about ego. The truth
No.
is just the truth. It is what it is. And
Yeah.
so if you've made a discovery that debunks what your whole life, you know, the work that you've done for your whole life, which means now you have to go back to the beginning and start from scratch. Well, that's just the way it is.
Mm, yeah.
You just have to realize that what you thought was true has been now proven otherwise. And
And
that's what
also,
Gobekli Tepe has done.
yeah. And it's also cool. It's way cooler this way. Like it's way cooler this way. It's I don't understand the complete denial
Mm.
of this kind of way of thinking, because it's makes more sense and it's also more fun. Like it's
I don't
more
think they
fun.
can deny it anymore. I don't think they can deny it
Well,
anymore because
they are though.
I know, but they can
Yeah.
deny it all you like. But people like you are saying, hang on a minute, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And people like you are telling people like me who are listening now.
Mm, yeah.
Because at first I was like, what? And it was because of you telling me this stuff and me going, I'm going to look into that. Or
Yeah.
I'm going to go there because Juliet wants to go there. I want to go there too for her. right? Those sorts of things are waking people up, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be on the path that I am now. And I wouldn't
Yeah,
be looking into things that, as deeply as I do now.
yeah,
And I think that's a beautiful thing,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
which
And
is why, I think doing these videos for people is really important, because it's like what you used to do to me on steroids now.
yeah, but it's good fun. I enjoy researching and talking about them. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think that's it for this recap, if you will, of
Yeah.
um Atlantis and ancient
Yeah.
mysteries. And yeah, we'll do some more episodes. Um, they'll be coming at you. I might do some solo recordings as well, like out in nature, who knows? So yeah, I might do some ones about Scotland too while I'm here.
Oh, would love that.
Yeah, some
Would
stone
love that.
circles.
There's so much history in Scotland, and
Mm,
there's a family connection, Juliet, because my mum was
yeah,
Scottish. So yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Mwah. We love
Mwah.
you.
Love you, Mom, and love
Love
you,
you too.
everybody else.
Bye.
Bye.